an incredible adventure hidden beneath at Sahara, a treasure comprised of coffins, mummies, and mysterious texts.
Something strange is stirring beneath Egypt's ancient sands. A golden sarcophagus sealed in silence. A corridor hidden inside a monument that was supposed to hold no more secrets. A severed hand buried beneath a royal throne, still clenched after thousands of years. These aren't myths or legends, but real discoveries that are rewriting the tone of Egypt's past. Some are beautiful, some are brutal, and some feel like warnings. Among the 17 unearthed finds, one still gazes forward, unblinking, untouched, undisturbed for over 3,000 years. What were they trying to protect or hide? These are not just pieces of history. They feel like unfinished stories, trapped in stone and gold, waiting for someone to listen. Will you? The Pit of Giant Hands. Beneath the throne room of an ancient palace in Avaris, once the capital of the Hyksos dynasty, archaeologists uncovered a chilling and deliberate display. 16 severed right hands buried across 4 pits.
More than a dozen very large hands cut and buried in an ancient palace in modern Egypt and its surroundings.
Dating back roughly 3,600 years, these hands weren't haphazard battlefield remains, but carefully interred trophies beneath royal floors. Some were unusually large and remarkably well preserved. The ceremonial removal of right hands from defeated enemies. The terrible tradition was not a mere tally of numbers, it involved degradation and submission. In war, the right hand of the ancient Egyptian denoted strength and weaponry, authority and agency. By severing it from their body, they captured enemies and conveyed the sense of robbing them of honor and power. From the texts, a warrior was rewarded in gold upon every hand he brought, proof of conquest. But the existence of these severed hands laid beneath the palace hints that it was something more than transactional. It was ritualistic, woven into the fabric of elite ideology and public power. This has reopened the case about the Hyksos, that shadowy foreign dynasty which once governed northern Egypt. Were they bloodthirsty oppressors or calculating administrators adopting Egyptian ways? The Pit of Hands darkens that tale with the suggestion of a most violent ceremony of subjugation enacted at the very center of royal power itself. As archaeology continues to strip away the sands of time, such discoveries remind us that often behind the grand facades, Egypt carried a very severe and haunting reality. One where not only monuments, but also mutilations were the symbols of power. Brace yourself for betrayal and blood, because this next story doesn't scream horror, it actually screams. The Screaming Mummy. Among the many mummies discovered in the Valley of the Kings, one stands out in chilling contrast, the so-called Screaming Mummy. Unlike the serene expressions typically found on royal remains, this corpse was found with its mouth agape, frozen in what appears to be a scream of agony or terror. Wrapped not in fine linens, but in sheepskin, an impure material in ancient Egyptian burial rites, the body was clearly disgraced. For decades, the identity of this haunting figure remained a mystery until modern DNA testing and historical records pointed to Prince Pentawere, a son of Pharaoh Ramsys III.
A mysterious mummy, a murdered pharaoh, and tests on ancient DNA.
As per the ancient scriptural sources, Pentawere was said to be a major partner in the notorious harem conspiracy concerning a plot against his own father. The cause was sheer craving for authority, ambition of the court, driven perhaps by some other queen among the wives of the king. But the conspiracy could not succeed, and the doom was imminent. CT scanning later traced Ramsys III's mummy, and within the features, a deep cut was present in the region of his throat, confirming the slaying. Prince Pentawere is said to have died, quite probably by poison, before a public execution. He would thus receive a burial unbefitting a prince, and the complete mummification process was left unfinished for him, devoid of sanctified rituals accomplishing entry to the hereafter. Such a fate was believed to be worse than death in the ancient Egyptians' belief. The end of the story is by no means a sad story. The open-mouth scream has stimulated controversies going beyond archaeology. Some take it as a sign of some supernatural unease, a soul cursed to remain wandering. Whether it is the post-mortem position or the raggedness of betrayal that has been carved in flesh, the screaming mummy remains one of the most visceral reminders of ancient Egypt's dark chapters. Through this evil legacy, Prince Pentawere continues to enjoy attention, not as a ruler but as a warning from the shadowed throne rooms of history. Whale bones in the Sahara. Amid the scorching dunes of the Egyptian Sahara lies a place so surreal it seems to defy logic: Wadi al-Hitan, or the Valley of the Whales. Here, massive fossilized skeletons of ancient whales, some stretching over 50 feet long, bake under the desert sun, far from any sea. These bones date back over 37 million years to a time when this arid land was a vast, warm ocean teeming with life.
Pieces of about 1,000 ancient whales have been uncovered.
But these aren't just any whales. Many of the fossils belong to species like Basilosaurus and Dorudon, transitional forms that still bore vestigial hind limbs, remnants from a time when their ancestors walked on land. The site's truly wonderful characteristics are the clarity of the fossils and their completeness. Perfectly preserved vertebrae, skulls, and rib structures are embedded in limestone beds and help tell the uninterrupted story of one of the most dramatic leaps of evolution. From land-dwelling mammals to oceanic giants, the leg bone has become a mighty evolutionary marker, attesting to how in between these early whales were in the tapestry of evolution. It is also called evolution's fingerprint in stone, and perhaps there can't be a clearer record of such nature reshaping itself than this graveyard of sea monsters in the desert. Wadi al-Hitan is not just a portal to ancient Egypt's geological past, it's part of a larger enigma. Similar whale fossils have been found in Chile's Atacama Desert, suggesting global patterns of marine migration that elude our understanding. How did these colossal water-inhabiting animals get so far inland into extremely arid lands? As these scientists try to solve that riddle from antiquity, Wadi al-Hitan stands as one of the most fascinating and ghostly natural museums of our planet, a resting place for whales in the sand rather than in the sea. The silence of that place speaks on behalf of Earth's never-ending story. Hidden corridor inside the Great Pyramid. For more than 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as a monument to ancient engineering and mystery.
The towering structure has for centuries kept secrets out of reach of scientists and archaeologists.
In 2023, that mystery deepened with a groundbreaking discovery: a previously unknown 30-foot-long corridor hidden just behind the pyramid's north face. What made the find remarkable wasn't just the space itself, but how it was detected, using cosmic ray muon radiography, a high-tech, non-invasive method that tracks subatomic particles to see through solid stone. Often used to study volcanoes, this technology allowed scientists to peer inside one of the world's most enigmatic structures without disturbing a single block. What they saw was an untouched, undecorated void, an internal space completely sealed since the pyramid's construction. Experts are divided on its purpose. Some argue that the corridor served as a weight relief structure to protect the chambers inside. On the other hand, some more esoteric explanations include a hidden burial vault, a construction passage, or an architectural element intended to have a symbolic function, disappearing forever from human sight. The shattering aspect of the findings is the apparent emptiness, undisturbed condition, and the willful silence of a faraway civilization. No inscriptions or internal guides are available to aid in the somewhat easy interpretation. This is the first major internal find in 200 years, and it will mainly launch the process of re-examining pyramids. The internal areas of the Great Pyramid become more mysterious and less comprehensible in terms of common sense. As with technology moving inside without touching a single stone, the archaeological site simply refuses to provide clarity or provide any solutions. but keeps posing questions as an alternative. The Spinaurus. Lurking in the ancient river systems of what is now the Moroccan Sahara, was a predator unlike any other. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. Measuring over 50 feet long, it outmatched even the mighty Trex in length, but it wasn't built for life on land. Spinosaurus was an aquatic hunter, with a streamlined body, conical teeth perfect for catching slippery prey, and short, muscular limbs suited for swimming.
Second biggest theropod known to science was roaming about, the Spinosaurus.
First discovered in Egypt in the early 20th century, its original remains were tragically destroyed in World War II bombings, leaving paleontologists to debate for decades whether this strange dinosaur truly lived in water or merely hunted near it. The debate in the air began to get some relief with the new fossil discoveries from Morocco, particularly a long, paddle-shaped tail, unlike that in any other known dinosaur. Robotic reconstructions further confirmed what the many investigators had assumed. Spinosaurus was the first fully aquatic dinosaur we know, swimming through rivers with ease and agility, just like a crocodile. Its enormous sail-like spine may have accomplished several purposes, from thermal regulation, mating display, and possibly even hunting advantage. This revelation changes our understanding of dinosaur ecosystems. Spinosaurus not only dipped in and out of water, but thrived something akin to the position of an apex aquatic predator. In a world of crocodiles and hippos, the beast silently lingered in wait below the surface. A reminder that the real threat in prehistory came not just from land or sky, but also from the depths. The golden-tongued mummies. Among the haunting ruins of ancient Egyptian temples, archaeologists have unearthed a strange and symbolic mystery. Mummies buried with golden tongues.
Details stood out. A tongue made of pure gold inside the mouth.
First discovered in 2021 at the Papyrus Magna Temple near Alexandria, a site rich in Greco-Roman influence, these burials initially appeared to be rare anomalies. But the subsequent discovery of similar mummies in Oxyrhynchus pointed to a broader ritual practice. What truly surprised researchers was that these weren't pharaohs or nobles, but ordinary individuals, men, women, and children, each interred with gold foil placed in their mouths. This striking detail suggested that something more than social status was at play. Gold for the ancient Egyptians went beyond being a precious metal. It was considered to be the flesh of their gods, everlasting and divine. The tongue, as the organ doing the speaking, had a certain sanctity attached to the idea of an afterlife. Therefore, the golden tongue may have been an instrument used in the ceremony so that a deceased could petition Osiris, the lord of the netherworld, for eternal life. In one undisturbed tomb, a limestone sarcophagus interred two bodies, a golden tongue preserved for millennia, and foil fragments that glimmered. All of this evidence pertains to a widely held spiritual belief that ordinary people should also be granted the right to speak in the afterlife. By using such an instrument, ancient Egyptians sought to give it to the dead not only for communication, but also for existence in another world. The Labyrinth of Har. Beneath the sands of Egypt lies a riddle spoken of for millennia. The Labyrinth of Har. Described by Herodotus as more impressive than the pyramids, this vast underground complex was said to contain countless chambers, halls, and tombs.
This alleged foundation might very well be the roof of the still existing labyrinth.
Beneath the pyramid of Pharaoh Amenemhat, the third of the 12th dynasty. Long thought to be a legend, the labyrinth began to reveal itself in 2008, when archaeologists uncovered structural remnants beneath the site. What emerged were fragments of a sprawling ceremonial and funerary complex, seemingly divided between the pharaoh and his queens. Proof that the ancient accounts may have held more truth than fiction. But begotten what yet lies buried? Although only small portions of the labyrinth have been uncovered, researchers have discovered granite sarcophagi, carved reliefs, and hieroglyphically inscribed parts, suggesting that the rest might enclose sacred chambers of judgment or spiritual trials. Some researchers believe the structure borrows Egyptian ideas of the afterlife as a physical gauntlet to guide or challenge the soul beyond death. Remaining under layers of centuries, the Labyrinth of Har becomes visible on both counts, a wonderful architectural marvel and a metaphysical puzzle that may have been created not simply to house the dead, but to map out the passage of souls through realms of fear, trial, and transformation. The Lost Golden City. Beneath the sands of Luxor, archaeologists uncovered one of Egypt's most stunning modern finds, the Lost Golden City, also called the Rise of Aten. Excavated in 2021 by a team led by Zahi Hawass, the city dates back more than 3,000 years to the reign of Amenhotep III, one of ancient Egypt's most powerful pharaohs. What set this discovery apart was its extraordinary state of preservation. Streets of mud brick houses, active workshops, and even loaves of bread still in ovens. Described as Egypt's version of Pompeii, the site offers an eerie, frozen-in-time glimpse into daily life during Egypt's Golden Age. Even now, it is a mystery what caused this sudden disappearance of the city. Historians are inclined to think
Egyptian made this. There was lots of flood happens here.
That a sudden vacating would be brought by the rise of Akhenaten, son of Amenhotep III, wherein he made a major religious shift by placing all Egypt-only patronage in the light of Aten, the sun disk. Such a disruption could have indeed blown apart the religious and political structure of the city. The material evidence was found as artifacts related to Queen Tiye, Akhenaten's mother, amulets, and figurines of the now forgotten household gods. All living stories have been destroyed in a society under the rise of Aten by doctrines whereby a whole way of living has been obliterated. It has preserved in its silence a haunting echo of glory and sudden collapse. Hold your breath after those 59 sealed coffins, because this next city froze time itself. 59 sealed sarcophagi in Sahara. In the autumn of 2020, as the world faced a modern crisis, archaeologists in Sahara, just south of Cairo, uncovered a discovery seemingly untouched by time. 59 sealed wooden sarcophagi buried in a narrow 36-foot deep shaft.
It is one of the most fascinating sites in Egypt.
Undisturbed for over 2,500 years, these coffins weren't royal in appearance. Yet, what they held was extraordinary. The mummies inside were immaculately preserved, wrapped in rich linen, painted with vibrant hieroglyphs, and buried with sacred objects indicating their elite status during Egypt's late period. They belonged not to kings or generals, but to priests, scribes, and high-ranking officials whose spiritual stature was reflected in the care of their burial. What astonished researchers most was how well hidden the site had been. The first 13 coffins were found quickly, but 46 more lay just inches below areas previously excavated, suggesting deliberate concealment. Many featured double lids, protective amulets, and divine imagery tied to deities like Nefertiti and Tasokar. Some scholars believe this burial cache was intentionally hidden to avoid desecration, reflecting growing spiritual ambition among the non-royal elite. In a necropolis long associated with the afterlife, these 59 sealed sarcophagi stand as a powerful testament that mimesis, secrecy, and divine preparation for eternity weren't reserved for pharaohs alone. Kafras' Diorite statue. In the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, one statue radiates a presence that feels almost alive, the Diorite statue of Pharaoh Kafra. Over 4,500 years old, it's carved from diorite, a stone so hard it can dull modern steel. Yet ancient artisans shaped it with astonishing precision. Kafra, believed to have commissioned the second pyramid of Giza and possibly the Great Sphinx, is depicted seated on a lion-throned pedestal, his posture formal and expression calm, yet commanding. Behind his head, the falcon god Horus extends protective wings, merging divine guardianship with royal authority in a single elegant gesture. The only thing about the statue that draws people in is the craftsmanship. Somehow, the The statue's fate and presence are intertwined. It was recovered hidden away face down near Kafras Valley Temple, possibly as an act of hiding or defacing it from sight. One hand apparently grasps a royal insignia, while the other lies open. One suggests power, the other restraint. Inscriptions would surely have helped, but the statue has a presence regardless. Many scholars refer to it as one of the strongest royal portraits in all of Egyptian history, not for pretentiousness or ostentation of its renderings, but for its silent, abiding strength. Before it, one gets the feeling not that one is observing, but that one is being watched. Khafra seems to behold from across the millennium an eternal god-king, carved to endure forever. The Papyrus Scroll of Emosi. In 2022, near the step pyramid of Djoser in Sahara, archaeologists uncovered a stunning find, a remarkably preserved 52-foot-long papyrus scroll lying beside the mummy of a man named Emosi.
Because of the beauty of the coffin, the mummy should be inside.
This was not just any manuscript. It was a personalized Book of the Dead, a sacred funerary text intended to guide the soul safely through the perils of the Egyptian underworld. Written in hieratic script, the scroll contained 113 chapters spread across 150 densely packed columns, filled with spells, invocations, and spiritual instructions designed to shield Emosi on his journey beyond death. What is distinct about this scroll is the weightiness of its given identity and eternity. The name of Emosi is mentioned in excess of 260 times in order to secure his soul to the mightiest rites hidden within. Every line observes sacred layout conventions meant to reflect the soul's sojourn through Duat, the realm of judgment, transformation, and danger. Vivid illustrations depict Osiris and his gods, with monsters and the fire barriers. These ones are challenges that could be faced only by those prepared spiritually. In contrast with fragmented texts that would be buried with so many, this complete scroll of Emosi holds within it a rare, intimate portrait of a man who totally devoted himself to attaining immortality, not through royal monuments, but words crafted to ring in the ears of the divine world forever. Colossal statue of Ramsys II. For years, residents of a modest Cairo neighborhood unknowingly lived above the buried remains of a giant. In 2012, excavations in ancient Heliopolis, once a sacred city devoted to the sun god Ra, revealed the shattered pieces of a 26-foot-tall quartzite statue of Ramsys II, one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs. Unearthed by a team from the University of Leipzig and Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities, the statue had been broken into 6 massive fragments, partially submerged in muddy groundwater. Despite its ruined state, the figure's broad chest, imposing jawline, and commanding artistry immediately evoked the grandeur of a ruler whose influence still echoes across millennia. This statue was carved from a single block of quartzite and was likely placed in front of the great temple complex of Ramsys II.
Statue of Ramses the Great, one of ancient Egypt's legendary pharaohs.
It has no inscriptions, but archaeologists confidently identified it based on its location and the proximity of a statue of Ramses's grandson, Seti II. It was probably destroyed during the Greco-Roman times, when many ancient temples were dismantled or buried. But perhaps the most spectacular aspect of this story is the discovery site of the statue. Not the grandeur of a tomb or an exalted hall, but rather the daily life of an underground street in a modern urban area. The statue survives in fragments as a lasting testament to Ramses's godly legacy and a constant reminder that, obscured by the din of modern life beneath his feet, lie the vestiges of an ancient civilization, one waiting to be exposed. Mummified lion cubs. In 2019, archaeologists at the Sahara necropolis uncovered a startling and unprecedented find: mummified lion cubs, carefully wrapped in linen and buried with ritual care. These cubs were discovered among a remarkable collection of preserved animals, including mongooses, cobras, bulls, falcons, and scarab beetles. forming what appeared to be a sacred menagerie rather than a typical burial site. The lions generated particular excitement as their discovery offered the first clear physical confirmation that lions were deliberately mummified in ancient Egypt, something long theorized but never definitively proven. With a fierce reputation invoking admiration and dread, the lion became a powerful religious symbol intimately associated with Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war and healing. CT scans revealed that the young animals had barely developed their paws, suggesting that they were purposely bred to be ritually slaughtered.
In the same way as with some of the other animals, they were breeding them and they were then giving them as offering.
The remains of an incompletely identified feline close by include rarities like either panthers or leopards, possibly devoted to different gods upon ceremonial slaughtering. Scholars disagree, some pointing to the purity or divine potential represented in the youth of the cubs, while others assert a more pragmatic viewpoint. In either case, the discovery bears witness to the spiritual presence animals possessed in Egyptian religious thought. Those cubs can hardly have been mere offerings. They were very much a channel between mortals and gods, their presence in sacred ritual intended to resonate throughout eternity. 40. Mummies in the desert. In 2019, archaeologists working at Tuna al-Gabal in central Egypt uncovered a rock-cut tomb that had remained sealed and hidden for over 2,000 years. Located about 9 meters beneath the desert surface, the chamber contained 40 mummies, including men, women, and 12 children, arranged with careful precision. Unlike chaotic mass graves from plague or conflict, this necropolis reflected intentional design. The deceased were preserved to varying degrees, some wrapped in fine linen, others placed in wooden or clay coffins, accompanied by painted mummy cases, pottery, and fragments of funerary scrolls. Though not royal, the site bore the marks of wealth and status, revealing elaborate burial practices for individuals of middle to upper class standing. Dating back to the Ptolemaic period, when Egyptian traditions were fusing with those of Greece, the tomb provides clues to a wholly unique cultural blend. Within it were discovered traces of Demotic writing and 6 mummified animals, possibly pets or ritual offerings. Note that these dictated a fairly prominent local family who did indeed keep elite funerary customs without royal titles. Most haunting of all was the fact that the tomb had been sealed so tightly that the creators almost seemed to have meant it never to see the light of day again. Fearful, awed, or perhaps just secretive, the hidden place speaks volumes. The mummies of Tuna al-Gabal thus offer an exceptionally rare and intensely personal view into non-royal Egyptian belief, a world wherein spiritual safeguarding, familial legacy, and muffled power mattered as much as any pharaoh's decree. The Golden Man of Sahara. In a 33-foot deep shaft beneath the sands of Sahara, archaeologists uncovered a burial that defied long-held beliefs about ancient Egyptian funerary customs, the so-called Golden Man of Sahara. The mummy, identified as Hatshepsut, was wrapped entirely in gold leaf and sealed inside a stone sarcophagus that had remained untouched for over 4,000 years. Dating back to the Old Kingdom, an era of pyramid-building grandeur, the discovery stunned researchers not because the tomb belonged to a pharaoh, but because it didn't. Hatshepsut appeared in no royal records, yet his burial rivaled that of kings in opulence and ritual care. The mummy adorned with the finely made tunic, headband, belt, and chest bracelet
that held the mummy with gold paint or gilding the face
unmistakably bore all the signs of immense stature. In ancient Egypt, gold was not merely ornamental, but rather it symbolized the flesh of the gods, a divine material meant to eternally preserve and elevate the soul. The very fact that this divine material was used on a mummified body that was not a royal indicates that Hatshepsut, in life, held some extraordinary power and influence as a high priestess, or as a noble, or a great unseen power behind the throne. Egyptologist Francesco Tiradriti even suggested a more interesting interpretation. The gold belt maintained a spiritual link, binding the soul to the world of the living. This was not just an extravagant burial, but rather an overt declaration of eternal existence. Hatshepsut's tomb evokes a further question. Just how many of the powerful who went undocumented lie beneath the sands of Egypt? Their legacies erased while their graves clearly stand. The Golden Man of Saqqara challenges any assumption that immortality was something reserved for royalty. It rather implies that, at times, true power operated from the shadows. The Tomb of the Unknown Queen. In the sands of Saqqara, archaeologists uncovered a tomb unlike any other, sealed for millennia and shimmering with unexpected grandeur. Inside were more than 300 intricately painted coffins, dozens of sacred relics, and at the center, a sarcophagus crafted entirely of solid gold. It belonged to a woman named Queen Neith, a figure absent from all known royal records, inscriptions, or dynastic histories. The surrounding chamber overflowed with divine iconography, suggesting that Neith was not only a queen, but possibly revered as a sacred or spiritual figure in her time. The scale and splendor of the burial point to immense power, yet her name had been erased from the pages of history. Some scholars suggest that perhaps Neith lived around the time when Akhenaten was ruler of Egypt, the revolutionary pharaoh responsible for tearing down the pantheon of Egyptian gods by installing the sun god Aten as the only one fit to be worshipped. Others argue that she was consciously wiped off the face of the earth, a great woman whose existence could potentially intimidate later dynasties. Her grave was ringed by coffins of elite military officers and advisors, some of whom had strange double lids, perhaps for secrecy or protection. One burial held a mummified guard grasping a ceremonial axe, probably as a personal ward. With historical mention lacking, the high-ranking burials in the vicinity, and the opulent surroundings, there is evidence that Queen Neith's heritage was not just forgotten, but buried in consciousness. Her rediscovered tomb brings Egypt's accepted royal narrative under interrogation and reminds us of how many chapters of history are still buried under the sand. If repatriation debates fire you up, just wait until you meet a queen whose entire existence was wiped from history. The statue of Nefertiti. Over 3,300 years ago, in a modest workshop at Amarna, a sculptor, likely named Thutmose, created what would become one of the most iconic artifacts of the ancient world, the bust of Queen Nefertiti.
The final resting place of ancient Egyptian Queen Nefertiti could finally have been discovered.
Discovered in 1912 by German archaeologist Ludwig Borchardt, the bust captures not only Nefertiti's extraordinary beauty, but a sense of grace and timeless power. With its lifelike expression and piercing gaze, the sculpture has come to symbolize the mystique of ancient Egypt itself. However, the artifact never returned to Egyptian soil. Today, it resides in Berlin's Neues Museum, and its removal has sparked more than a century of controversy. The controversy surrounding the export of the bust is still intense. Egyptian officials accuse Borchardt of downplaying the bust in official records to smuggle it, while the German authorities claim that the documentation was all legal and transparent. For Egypt, it is a looted national treasure. For Germany, a pillar of global cultural heritage. It is also a debate that is louder now than before, especially in greater discussions on colonial collections within the last few years. Zahi Hawass, Egypt's former antiquities minister, has been leading the charge to have the piece returned to Egypt, referring to it as a symbol of past injustice as long as it remains in Berlin. The bust has become a contested relic rather than simply a masterwork of sculpture, as it represents an emblematic encounter with cultural identity, historical responsibility, and unhealed scars. Nefertiti's placid, unyielding face is silent through all of that, however, haunting, eternal, and still at the heart of an international impasse. Thanks for watching, and if you're still here, you know this journey through Egypt's secrets was anything but ordinary. If you enjoyed unraveling the mysteries buried in gold, stone, and silence, don't forget to like the video, Leave a comment about which discovery gave you chills, and subscribe for even deeper dives into ancient enigmas. There's more just beneath the surface, and your next mystery is already waiting on screen. Go ahead, click the next video and keep digging.